conversations with professionals, industry leaders, policymakers, and stakeholders, helping us understand the trends, opportunities, and challenges shaping the future of work and economic development. Labor migration has become one of the defining realities of today's interconnected global economy. Every year, millions of people leave their communities in search of employment, higher incomes, better working conditions, professional development, and improved standards of living. Nigeria is no exception. Thousands of skilled and unskilled workers migrate within Africa and to other parts of the world, hoping to secure opportunities that can improve their lives and support their families. While migration has the potential to create prosperity, transfer skills, and contribute significantly to economic development, it also exposes many workers to exploitation, irregular recruitment practices, unsafe working environments, trafficking, discrimination, and serious violations of labor rights when proper protections are lacking. According to the International Labour Organization, migrant workers make enormous contributions to economies around the world, yet many remain among the most vulnerable members of the global workforce. Issues surrounding decent work, fair recruitment, access to justice, social protection, and respect for workers' rights have therefore become central to international conversations on labor migration. For Nigeria, where outward labor migration continues to increase, strengthening migration governance and protecting citizens before, during, and after that migration has become both a labor priority and a national development issue. Trade unions have remained at the forefront of this conversation. Beyond negotiating better working conditions, organized labor continues to advocate fair labor standards, workers' education, policy reforms, safe migration pathways, and stronger collaboration between governments, employers, recruitment agencies, and international organizations. The role is becoming increasingly important in ensuring that migration delivers opportunities rather than hardship. Today, we'll be discussing protecting migrant workers, the role of trade unions in safe labor migration. Joining us is Comrade Eustace Imoyera James, the Senior Assistant General Secretary in the Research and Policy Analysis Department of the Nigerian Labour Congress. He is a respected labor policy expert whose work spans migration governance, labor policy, workers' education, tax justice, and social protection. He holds a master's degree in labor policies and globalization from the Global Labor University at the University of Kassel and the Berlin School of Economics and Law in Germany. Within the Nigerian Labour Congress, he serves as researcher and policy analyst, focal person on labor migration, focal person on illicit financial flows and tax justice, and a member of both the National Education Coordinating Team and the Education Facilitators Team. Through these responsibilities, he continues to shape policy discussions and strengthen workers' protection across Nigeria and beyond. Good morning, comrade, and welcome to Trader Foods Breakfast Business Briefing.
Good morning for having me.
Yeah. You know, now to begin this, a lot of people don't know what labor migration is. And so my question to you this morning is, what exactly is labor migration and why has it become such an important issue for Nigeria today?
Thank you very much. Labor migration means movement of persons from their place of birth to another destination for job and further opportunities that are economically inclined to earn a living and survive. But most emphasis is on international labor migration. So labor migration have different dynamics and trends. You have internal migration and you have international migration.
Okay. You know, following up with that, just brings me to my next question, because a lot of Nigerians are living the country in pursuit of better opportunities abroad. I've had a whole lot of my friends leave the country because they want to get better work opportunities in Europe, in America, in Australia, and the likes. So what are the major factors driving labor migration among Nigerian workers?
The factors driving migration are both the push and the pull factors. The push factors are those factors that are existing in countries of origin, which make people to leave their country for other climes. In the case of Nigeria, one of the major push factors is that of unemployment, especially for young people who have graduated from schools and they can't find jobs or what we call decent jobs. The issue of rising insecurity is also a major push factor. The poor infrastructures in terms of facilities around electricity, around health, the poor educational system, the high cost of living, all constitute the push factors. While in destination country, we have what we call the pull factors. The pull factors in a way are opposite of the push factors. For instance, opportunity for decent work. Everybody want to work and have a decent living. The issues around the currency exchange rate, because if you work in other clients, either dollar or pounds you earn, you know what the exchange is. Issues around social security, that there are policies and facilities in place to support your family life even when you are not working. Issue around the secular security, where you can work free or at least to some extent there is security guarantee. Issues around quality education, even affordable. Issues around the quality public health that is affordable. All of these are the pull factor. So for young Nigerians, it's always natural that for young people, they are ambitious and they want to have a better life. And when they see countries where this thing exists, they become desperate to move to this crime. So the factors are either push or pull.
In your recent interview, you encouraged migrant workers to join trade unions like the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress. Why is union membership so important for migrant workers?
Because our advocacy in better migration governance is around the protection of the human and labor rights of migrant workers, which can be derived through decent work and fair recruitment practices. And we believe that trade union, which represent the working people, including the migrant workers, is best positioned to ensure the protection of these human and labor rights for migrant workers through what we call social dialogue mechanism, whereby we negotiate with employers, we come out with collective bargaining agreements that then regulate the working conditions. So if migrant workers belong to the unions, the agreement negotiated by the unions automatically covers these migrant workers. But when migrant workers are not in the union, the employer determines what they pay to them. To some, they work, they are never paid, which we call wage theft. To some, they never have access to some of these social security policies like the health insurance, like the pension scheme, because they are not in the union and there is no platform to negotiate for them. So if the best way to guarantee the protection of migrant workers is to have them in the union, so that the union can then be their voice and provide representation for them.
Yes. That takes me to my next question. I've noticed that a lot of people focus on just getting a visa first before traveling. The likes of Waka Waka Doctor, who encourages a lot of Nigerians to migrate to other countries. He always talks about not just having a visa, but you should have a valid employment contract, which leads me to my next question. Why is it important to have a valid employment contract and work permit before accepting a job overseas?
Yeah, that is what I'm actually here in Lagos for. We are in a stakeholder dialogue with the Nigeria Employers Prospective Association on how we can promote better migration governance and fair recruitment. Having a valid employment contract is one of the major principles of fair recruitment practices, because your contract of employment specifies the conditions, the terms, and the entitlement. Before leaving Nigeria, you are sure that you have an employment while you are traveling, and that is that. Also, you find out that there are a number of issues that are uncovered if you don't have employment letter. You can be, in most cases, it end up in human trafficking. The person will tell you, oh, I'm taking you to Europe to go and become a medical doctor. Then you get to Europe, you end up being a taxi driver, because there was never an employment contract that specified what you are going to do. And that is why we are also advocating that there should be what we call bilateral labor agreement and migration exchange. If we have organized migration, all of these challenges that the Nigerian migrants face abroad will, to a very large extent, be resolved. What that means is that when it is a state-to-state discussed migration, as it is happening in some of these Asia countries, if UK needs Nigerian doctors, they should be able to relate through the appropriate agency in Nigeria to say, okay, we need 100 doctors, and these are the terms and conditions. That is what we call organized migration. And in that case, the principles of fair recruitment will apply, because the conditions of work, the hour of work, and everything would have been stated in that employment letter before departing. And before these migrants depart, they are also supposed to go through what we call the Migrant Resource Center, that is being run by the Federal Ministry of Labour and Employment, where what we call pre-departure orientation programs are organized. These workers have taken through some orientation programs to understand the country they are going, the working conditions, the cultural differences, and all of that, so that when they get to this country, they already have a proud knowledge of that country. And then with the country we are discussing with, there should also be what we call post-arrival orientation program, so that when they arrive that country, these migrants are also taken through those programs to understand the workings of that society before they go fully into the employment market.
Yes. You know, so when you were speaking just now, you mentioned human trafficking. You also mentioned, getting fake jobs, and people like, oh, they tell you, oh, you're going to Europe to become a doctor, and they end up on taxi driver. We've seen situations of people where they've been told that, oh, you're going to Europe to work, and at the end of the day, or they're like, oh, we're taking you to Italy, and at the end of the day, they become roadside workers in Italy. So now my question is this: what warning signs should intending migrant workers look out for before accepting employment abroad?
Like we just said, now, if you are a migrant worker and you have not been employment with a contract of employment, that is the beginning of warning sign, because most of these migrants are deceived. That deception is a major challenge within the migration cycle. So when you want to migrate and you don't have a contact and address of your employer that presumably you are going to work with, these are signs. And then you should also ensure that you find out information about this country. And that is where we in the Nigerian Labour Congress, in collaboration with the International Trade Union Confederation, ITUC, launched a website we call Migrant Recruitment Advisory. That Migrant Recruitment Advisory is an online resource where potential migrants can visit to know their sectors and the job opportunities available in some destination countries, not all destination countries, and also to also know credible recruitment agencies that can also recruit for such countries, because you have a lot of multiple recruitment agencies, human trafficker, even tourism organization, even traveling agents now act as recruitment agency.
Yes.
But if you access that website, you will see a list of registered accredited recruitment agency by the Ministry of Labour and Employment, and you also see countries that they can recruit for and the job opportunities that are available in those countries. So our advocacy is that not that people should not migrate, but that people should migrate regularly, safe and orderly. When they are informed, you then make better migration informed decision.
Okay. Now still on what we're talking about. Now let's see. Some people before they travel, most of the time they do very little research, or sometimes some will not even do extensive research, like you mentioned. The NLC has like a place where they can check such things. So now my question is, what research should workers carry out regarding labor laws, working conditions, and the culture of their destination?
Like I said earlier, there is what we call the Migrant Resource Center, established by the federal government of Nigeria under the Ministry of Labour and Employment. And these resource centers are available in some regions. For instance, in Lagos, I think that is where you have the biggest MRC and the Ministry of Labour in Ikoyi office, where migrants can go to get information, counseling, advisory on how to migrate. You also have one in Abuja, where migrants can also access and get this information. You have one somewhere in Nasarawa, and you have one in Benin, because these have been identified as major migration hubs where people are migrating from. And again, they are also online that people can also search. Like I talked about, the Migrant Recruitment Advisor is an online thing, which I can share the link for people who are interested in migrating to access and get information about migration. But the challenge is that there is a popular saying that one of the most kept secrets is the decision to migrate.
Yes.
That even your own very best friend or your sister may want to migrate, but he or she will never tell you.
Yeah,
until when he has arrived there, you call, or he will just call you on Facebook and say, guess what? I am in Canada.
In Europe.
You understand? So that is why many people fell victim and vulnerable to abuses and exploitation, because you keep it as a secret. If you discuss with people, they will be in a better position to advise you on what we call regular pathways. There are regular pathways to migrate, but if you don't know them, you take the irregular pathways and then you engage in desperate journey when you see people dying across the Mediterranean Sea or being locked up in detention because they have migrated irregularly.
Okay, now that brings me to my next question. Can you explain the difference between regular and irregular labor migration, and why this distinction is so important?
Yeah, irregular labor migration is when you migrate without following the proper channel and processes. For instance, if you are migrating for employment, you don't have a contract of employment, and maybe you now migrate through a study visa. Then you get to that country you want to work. You know that your process of migrating is a mismatch, because you have applied to go and study. So going for study, you now get there, you say you want to work. If you want to work, you are supposed to get a contract of employment and a working permit or a visa that specifies that you are going to work. That is regular. So sometimes people mistake irregular to those only taking the route. No, it is about the process, the pathway you take that makes it regular. But you see, when you migrate regularly, you know your rights, you know your condition, you know the privileges, you know the entitlement you have before migrating. You cannot be cheated. Yeah. You cannot be undermined because you migrate regularly. And that is why we are advocating for regular migration. But the challenge also is that countries of destination are making regular pathway more difficult. Yes. And that is what is fueling irregular migration. Oh, if I can't get working visa, but I can get a student visa, let me use it. Because of the restriction, we call it policing the border. Some is even externalizing the border. They want to make sure that people don't come to their country. So people now begin to take this irregular. So we are also advocating to say, if there is need for migrant workers in your country, there should be policies and practices that will encourage people to migrate regularly than closing those opportunities, because the migration cycle is also being run by a cartel. Some people are profiting from this irregular migration, and that is why you see it cannot stop. It is people that are fueling it, because they know that if you come in irregularly, for instance, like in the Gulf states, before now, there's what they call the kafala system. Once I'm the one who take you there, on arrival at the airport, I confiscate your travel document.
Yeah, they still do that.
Which means it is anything I tell you to do, you do. If you are to be paid $50, then I will tell you that it's $10 you will be paid. I collect the $40. So that is why I say it's a cartel. There's a cartel. People are profiteering from it. But what we are saying is that people should also not be desperate to use such channels.
Okay. Now, the Federal Ministry of Labour, you know, like you've mentioned, they established the Migrant Resource Centers. And so now, what roles do these centers play in preparing and protecting migrant workers?
The Federal Ministry of Labour is the overarching agency regulating and driving labour migration in Nigeria. We need to understand migration, like I said, has many dynamics and threats. Yes. Labour migration is one aspect of migration. We have the National Commission for Refugee, Migrant and Internally Displaced Persons. Is the overarching agency coordinating migration governance in Nigeria. But when you talk of labour migration, it's a thematic area in migration governance, which is being led by the Federal Ministry of Labour and Employment. And Federal Ministry of Labour and Employment have developed a national policy on labour migration, which regulates labour migration in Nigeria. It was first adopted in 2014 and reviewed in 2020. So that is a document that migrant workers or potential migrants should also look out for to understand the regulation of labour migration. And it is the outshoot of that policy that led to the establishment of migrant resource centers, because it was obvious that there should be a center where potential migrant, where returning migrant, where migrants who have issues should be able to access information, counseling, guidance, referral, and assistance. It's like a support center. And one of the challenges is that there is little or not much known about the center. And that is where we as stakeholders are speaking about it. And I'm sure through this medium now, people listening will now begin to know that there is such a center. And we are also hoping that the ministry will do more in terms of awareness creation and sensitization. I remember sometimes in Lagos, in some of these big buses, these BRT buses, you see advert Migrant Resource Center on it, but many people may not really take note of it, and that is also another challenge. Nigerians are not taking note of what they see. They are more interested in frivolities than the real things that even matters to their life.
Yes. Now, from your experience, right, what are the most common challenges Nigerian migrant workers face after arriving in their destination countries?
One of the most common challenges is that of exploitations, because they don't have bargaining power when they arrive their countries of destination, and as such they are exposed to abuses. Some are exposed to dehumanization, and that is because the principle of fair recruitment was not followed in their recruitment processes, and maybe many of them didn't migrate through the regular process. Many Nigerians migrate through tourist visa. I'm going for holiday 2 weeks, or I have a program to attend, and when they get there, they never come back. They now begin to run, hide, and that is what we are preaching against. And that is why we are also pushing the government to see how organized migration. But in spite of that, the trade union advocacy is that whatever status a migrant is, his or her human and labor rights must be respected, whether in irregular status or in undocumented status, because there are global frameworks that are guiding and regulating migration. For instance, the Global Compact on Migration says that there should be a test. There should be processes to ensure that undocumented migrants are documented. So states who host undocumented migrants, the first option should be either repatriation or deportation. It's about giving this migrant opportunity to regularize their stay, to regularize their documents so that they can become documented and then have access to facilities and services like the nationals.
You know, so let me see if I use myself as an example. For example, if I'm intending to migrate now, you know, everyone says, oh, I want to Japan, So if I'm intending to migrate to using the labor migration route, for example, I want to probably go to the US or go to Europe to work. How do I identify genuine recruitment agencies and avoid fraudulent labor recruiters?
Okay. This is a world of internet today and in the use of AI. I know that the migrant recruitment advisory does not cover US. But for US, you could search for sectors that needs employment. Mainly they may be key sectors, IT sectors. So you can search online to be sure. You can even apply. Many people apply online and get employment in US before leaving Nigeria.
Yes.
So these are possibilities. But for the migrant recruitment advisory, the countries it covers, you can go there and click on that country, search employment opportunities. That website will bring them out. Like I said, there are conditionalities.
Yes.
It's not a free giving.
Yes.
For instance, Germany is having what we call labor exchange programs with Nigeria through the GIZ, German Development Cooperation,
Yes.
that you can be employed here, get all your necessary documents and travel. Germany also have what they call opportunity card.
Yes.
That opportunity card says that if you have certain qualification, you can migrate to Germany if you have certain amount you can deposit, which is expected that you will live on it for 1 year in case you are not able to get employment, so that you don't become a liability to the German state. So there are, every country has all of these criteria, but it's for people to search properly. Like I said, it's very easy now in the day of IT. So you just go online, you search. They also relate with people, approach the Migrant Resource Center, and then you could be assisted.
Okay. As the NLC's focal person on migration and labor migration, what initiatives is the Congress undertaking to improve the welfare and protection of migrant workers?
Like I have said earlier, it's about ensuring that migrant workers are organized by the union so that collective bargaining agreements covers the migrant workers so that they enjoy the same condition, privileges as rights as Nigerians who are working in the same sector. And that is why we have also carried out a lot of capacity enhancement of our affiliate unions on how they can organize migrants. And another challenge is that in Nigeria, majority of the migrants are operating in the informal economy. They are operating in the informal sector. And NSC is also extending its organizational capacity to the informal sector, where migrant workers are now part of some of our affiliates. Because our belief is that once a migrant belongs to the union, the migrant is covered by the negotiations of the union, and the union then become a voice and representation of that migrant.
Okay. You know, beyond projecting workers abroad, because one extent this is something that I've been wanting to actually ask. So, how can better labor policies help improve employment opportunities and decent work within Nigeria?
Yeah, like I have always said, our engagement in labor migration governance advocacy is both for Nigeria workers traveling abroad and for migrant workers, non-Nigerians working in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, our emphasis is even more on migrant workers in Nigeria. The reason being that they are our potential members. Once we have them organized into our union, they are members of the NSC. They begin to pay check-up fees. They begin to service the NSC. They begin to be part of our mobilization capacity. So for us in the NSC, we have developed a Nigeria Trade Union Labor Migration Policy that is regulating our engagements. It's our major governance framework that is guiding our engagement. And we also go out for what we call migrant community outreaches, where we engage with migrants to create awareness, sensitize them on their rights. Because the first way to fight for the protection of your right is to first know what that right is.
Yes.
And many migrants don't even know that they have rights, even if they are not in their country. So this is one of the things the NSC is doing.
So you know, Nigerian workers abroad send billions in remittances every year. So beyond supporting families, how can labor migration contribute more effectively to Nigeria's economic development and skills transfer?
Yeah, you see, the government's major interest in migration is about diaspora remittances, and which is a major source of revenue to the Nigerian economy. I remember in 2023, we have reported that over $22 billion were remitted to Nigeria by Nigeria. That is official record. And you all know that many unofficial channels are being used by migrant workers, especially those who may not be in regular status, to send money home. And migrants have become a major support to families in terms of education, in terms of even buildings and family support. So the migrant is a major developmental issue that the government need to mainstream into its policies and programs.
You know, what advice would you give to young Nigerians who see migration as the only pathway to economic success?
Well, the truth is that I want them to disabuse their mind from that perception. Yes, migration is a human right. You have a right to migrate, but it's not the only pathway to success. I did not migrate. I had the opportunity to have migrated. When you were reading my CV, I did my master's in 2 universities in Germany, and I had the opportunity to have stayed back. But I came back here, and I think I'm doing well. So it's about first, what is your patriotic idea, and how do you use yourself to contribute to Nigeria? There's a lot of opportunities here, and I'm sure those who migrated will tell you that if it's only the freedom you enjoy here, you will find out that it is not easy to migrate. But like I said, because of limited opportunities, many people want to migrate. And that is why we are also pushing the government to say, stimulate industrialization, invest in the real economic sector that can employ young Nigerians, create opportunity, fix infrastructure. Because if our electricity system will work, so many Nigerians are enterprising that may want to be here, and then sometimes the cost of migrating is far more than the cost of establishing a business in Nigeria. Because migration is expensive. You can imagine if you want to take advantage of the German opportunity card, you will need nothing less than 12,000 euros. When you convert that to Naira, you know that is almost 20-something million, which if the system works here, you use it to start a business in 1 or 2 years, you are breaking even.
Yes. You know, finally, what key message would you like every Nigerian worker and intending migrants to remember about safe labor migration and protecting their rights?
That people should not migrate out of desperation. That people should migrate purely on informed decision and choices. People should avoid deceit. People should avoid watery promises that are not verifiable and realistic. People should take the proper migration channel, taking advantage of those channels I have mentioned, the Migrant Recruitment Advisory, accessing the Migrant Resource Center, and also using the internet to search for job opportunities that are in line with decent work agenda and fair recruitment practices.
Comrade Eustace Imoyera, thank you very much for joining us this morning and for sharing your wealth of knowledge and valuable perspectives on one of the most important labor issues confronting today's global workforce.
Welcome.
Our discussion has reinforced the fact that labor migration, when properly governed, can expand opportunities, improve livelihoods, promote skills transfer, and contribute meaningfully to national development. At the same time, it has reminded us that migration must never come at the expense of workers' rights, dignity, safety, or human welfare. Protecting migrant workers requires strong institutions, responsible recruitment systems, effective labor policies, and sustained collaboration among governments, employers, trade unions, and international organizations. As more Nigerians continue to seek employment opportunities beyond our borders, empowering workers with accurate information, strengthening migration governance, and promoting decent work will remain essential in ensuring that migration becomes a pathway to prosperity rather than vulnerability. Ultimately, protecting workers is not simply a labor issue. It is an investment in human capital, social justice, and sustainable national development. If you are just joining us, you can catch highlights of this conversation on our social media platforms. We are Trade FM Live across all platforms, and that's Facebook, X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and our YouTube channel. We'll take a short break now, and when we return with the 11 a.m. news on the hour. Stay with us.